Then I was like, it's not so bad in the butt.
Wait, what?
Hello and welcome to the Nerdosphere. We've got a great podcast for you today, folks. We've got a ton of catching up to do since our last podcast. Today we're going to hear about how COVID-19 impacted. Remember how we talked before we started?
About what?
About not doing stuff like that because your mic rubs up against your shirt and it
Oh, did you
sounds
hear it?
disgusting.
Would you
Yes.
say, dab nabbit, I did it again?
Yes. And now you've ruined the intro.
I didn't
Ruined.
ruin it.
We can
You've
never do it
ruined
again.
We can
We're
never
live.
We're live. It's over.
Ugh. It's not ruined. Go back to your speech.
Tonight, we're going to learn about how COVID-19 impacted this very podcast. Because it infected Corbin.
I was going to say, Corbin almost died. And the first thing he does when he joins the podcast again is start fucking with the audio. The first thing he does.
Yes, I've lost the will to live.
So we're going to talk about that. Corbin's going to give us his account of having COVID. And then we're also going to talk about what we've been watching and doing since we last did a podcast, because it's been a couple weeks at this point since we've recorded. I think it's been 1 week since there's been a release of a podcast, 2 weeks since recording. So, you know, we've been doing some stuff. As always, I am one of your hosts, Clayton. I am joined by Tim.
Hello.
And Corb COVID-Bane Presson, my brother and coronavirus survivor.
Hey. That's me. That's how you vibrato, Tim. That's how you vibrato.
Well, for those who don't know, this is the Nerdosphere podcast. We are a podcast that discusses anything you can nerd out about, from the big screen to the small screen and anything in between. Each week we discuss a different topic, whether it be a movie or a show or a book or music. If you can nerd out about it, we're going to talk about it. If you like what we do here and you want to support us, go over to check us out at patreon.com/thenerdosphere, where you can not only support the show, but get access to cool perks like submitted questions or comments to the show, voting on topics, and much more. I think we should take a minute to welcome some new patrons that we've got. Thank you and welcome to Jacob, to Matt, and to Vanessa. Welcome. You get a shout out.
Off clap.
We appreciate you guys loving what we do so much that you support us over on Patreon. We've revamped our YouTube page. If you're watching us now, you know that. We are now recording all of our podcasts live and with video, so that will be an option for those who prefer it, which, according to statistics, is a lot of dang people.
It's true.
So head over to YouTube, hit subscribe, hit that notification bell, and you will never miss a podcast episode. Of course, we are still available on all of your normal audio-only free feeds, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that good stuff, Stitcher, Google Podcasts. You can find us anywhere. So do it. We're also very active over on Facebook and Twitter. We post short videos on a regular basis, as well as share major updates in real time. Follow us at Twitter at NerdosphereCast and on Facebook at facebook.com/thenerdosphere. Make us your one-stop shop for everything in the Nerdosphere. Now, with all of that out of the way, how you boys doing? We're not getting into coronavirus yet, Corbin, so don't talk about that yet. Besides almost dying, how you doing?
Besides that, I'm enjoying this great bottle of Powerade, which has been my drink of choice for the past 5 weeks. Kind of took the air from my conversation.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's been my life. So, I mean, I've been good. The weather is trippy as shit.
Yes, it is.
We are in May, and I have yet to be a fussy bunny from being covered in sweat. It's been great. Don't get me wrong. I love it. I love the weather. But I'm kind of scared because usually when summer is prolonged in any capacity, it usually means the devil's anus is right around the corner. So I am so scared to see the temperature spike up to a 99.9 with 120% humidity, and I step outside and I'm just dripping wet.
August this year is gonna suck for anyone else who listens to us that's in Missouri, which may be most of our audience at this point because we're from Missouri. August already sucks.
It's going to be the worst.
We've got a mild, wet spring. August is gonna suck. I actually wrote down a couple things that I want to talk about during our chit chat because I didn't want to forget.
Yeah.
Like what?
First of all, I had a gentleman come in the other day. I forget why. I forget what he got an email about. Okay, so an old man received an email. He was in paying for his storage. For those of you who don't know, I'm a property manager, facility manager, whatever you want to call me. I'm the manager of a storage facility. Gentleman comes in wanting to pay for his storage. He's an older gentleman, 70s maybe. And he asked
good decade
a question about like an email. He's like, "Do you know what this email is about? Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing with it." And I was like, "I'm sorry, it was like I don't even remember what the email was about, but I couldn't help him." And he said, "I went into the post office and tried to get them to help me with this, and they said the same thing. And they were like, 'We can't help you with that.'" And he said, "You're the ones who send all these emails, and you can't help me?"
So
he was completely serious.
Was this an email from like your company to him that he's asking for help with, or is this just
it's just a random email. Like I wish I could remember what the actual email was because it's been a week or so.
It was probably something stupid like AT&T's response to COVID-19.
Oh, it was Spectrum. Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. It was something from he was getting like spammy emails from Spectrum. And he was like, I'm not a customer of Spectrum anymore. I don't want to receive these emails anymore. And I was like, I can't help you. And that's when he brought up, I went to the post office and said, "Hey, I don't want to receive these emails anymore. Can you stop?" And they were like, "We can't help you with that." And he said, he was completely serious. And he laughed and he said, "They said they couldn't even help me. And they're the ones who's sending it. Like, come on." And I was
like to imagine this is the old man from Up. Just like a crotchety old man. And his whole day was centered around going to the post office just to ask them to stop sending this email.
Yes, this was
the United States Postal Service is in charge of every
email sent. This is what
to everyone,
he believed
because it's digital mail.
Yes.
Holy balls.
Yeah. So, and I was like, I didn't know what to say. I just kind of like chuckled. I say, "Yep, to post office."
I'm like really
like,
loving this.
How do what? Do I go in? It's not my responsibility.
You should have said.
It's not my responsibility to walk this man through how emails work.
All you have to say is contact Spectrum.
No.
What do you mean no?
That's not my. No, that's not. That's not on me.
I'm not about helping people.
That's not on me. Speaking of helping people,
you're gonna let that poor man
I'll bring up another story.
Walk the rest of his life on Earth, which is like 5 years. Thing the USPS is in charge of emails.
Before you switch gears, I really love this visual. Old man, he gets up at like 5:30 in the morning. He's got his cup of coffee. Yeah. He's putting a suit on. He's tying his tie. He's got the lazy old dog laying at his feet. He's just talking to him.
Right.
Big day today.
Right.
Going to town. Gonna talk to the post office about all this junk mail they keep sending me.
Yep.
This whole day.
I have always been amazed at how often an old person can go to the post office and bank. I remember Mima, rest your soul, Mima. Every day, it seemed like, when we lived with her, she'd always go to the post office and to the bank. And those were like her big trips for the day of getting out of the house after she had her coffee
check the mailbox
and Intamin donuts.
Gotta check the mailbox.
At noon.
Back then, if you wanted to know your balance, you had to stop by the bank. So if Mima was on top of the banking stuff. So maybe she went and popped in there every day just to say, hey, what's my balance? I just want to make sure. Like, she was adamant about keeping that checkbook. So maybe she was like comparing, you know.
I guess that's
No
true.
foolery.
They do live in a different time where she still used a typewriter, even though
well,
it was
and back then
2005,
there wasn't
but
online banking. I mean, you're talking about when we were in 4th grade. I mean, there wasn't online banking back then.
It's also interesting for me to see like the schism in old people who like adapted to technology and those who were just like, I'm just going to ride this out to my grave. I don't need this new stuff. Because those are our grandparents. You know, Papa Preston didn't adapt to
Papa's embraced it,
technology.
man. He's got an iPhone.
Is he actually using it now?
He's checking ESPN and Fox News on those apps.
Is he on TikTok yet?
Do we want him?
Is he on TikTok yet?
He's not. No, he's not on TikTok yet.
But
He doesn't like to share his personal data with Chinese companies.
But then the other grandparents, you know, they were jumping on the internet and stuff like from the get go.
Oh yeah,
that's a catch-22 in all of itself. But
into that Facebook.
Into it.
I think
she sent me a video from InfoWars.
Yeah, me too.
It's like
I didn't watch it.
It's like a driver's license. Like, you just shouldn't have this anymore.
I would.
You're not responsible.
Eat my neighbor.
I'll shut them up and down. I'm going to eat them. My daughter's not going to go hungry, even though he has a son, which I guess isn't going to eat the neighbor.
Yeah. I have no idea what you're fucking talking about right now.
You haven't seen the Alex Jones video go around where he's talking about how he would eat his neighbor? If things go...
I have no idea. I'm actively watching our Facebook community group, which is a meme goldmine, and nobody has shared this video.
You gotta be on Twitter, man.
That's my only source, right? I can't juggle it all anymore.
You gotta be
I
on
am
Twitter.
starting to embrace the boomer and saying, like, nope, no more everything. Like,
remember a minute ago when Corbin said the old people split off, one's embraces change and one
just said I'm embracing that hard left.
Yeah, you're the hard left.
I'm done. Give me a jitterbug. Leave me alone.
The problem is like the Alex Jones thing, I think, is universally laughed at, but it's still political. I want to keep politics out of our group on the community page.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So that's partly why I didn't really want to share it, because there's also some,
Joe Biden memes are so funny.
I know, but Joe Biden memes. The sad Joe of him sitting at the window.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. I can't wait for it. Like, he's not going to, but if he was elected president, the resurgence of sad Biden memes of like, I thought Obama would be here is what I would love to see.
Oh man, we can only
Which
hope.
That's another thing. So coronavirus has so crazily taken over our lives that it's hard to imagine that in June starts the debates. And I tell you what, I'm placing some bets that we're going to see some fist fights on the stage between Trump and Biden. I'm 100% for it.
No, there won't be fist fights. Anybody who thinks that they actually hate each other is silly. Like, it's not to get too like political, but it's a farce, dude. They don't really hate each other. It's a joke. It's a joke. They want us to hate each other. It's a joke. There are no politicians are actually going to fight it. Well, except for like maybe AOC or like those newer ones, but they're a product of the political system.
I don't know. I do legitimately think most people hate Trump, though. Like, if you watch, like, there's so many great videos.
What I mean is politicians. Corbin was saying that a fist fight between Joe Biden and Trump, that's never going to happen. Never going to happen.
I think
but it's so fun. Like,
is Biden's going to trip over his words and Trump's going to go, buh, 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 and Biden's going to be like, what'd you say to me? Buh, 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 and then he's going to stumble over there and try to punch him.
Now you're convincing me. So we're going to get away from this topic. And speaking of helping people, so you got on to me about not helping the old man with his email problem, or revealing to him that the United Postal Service does not, in fact, send all emails.
Right.
And this is COVID related also. I was in Walmart the other day, and I think I might actually text you guys about this. Walking down the aisles, and they're all like, only go down this aisle, only go down this aisle. So I'm walking down this aisle, and this girl had to have been 15, 16, is trying to put this big 24, 32 pack of water on the bottom of her empty cart. She's struggling with it, trying to put it on the bottom. The cart keeps moving. So she keeps like, really struggling. She's got a friend next to her who's not paying attention. And the cart comes rolling towards me, and I was like, here, I'll just grab it and hold it for her. So I grabbed it and was like, go ahead and put it on. And she like looked at me, and her friend turned and looked at me, and I was like, oopsie. Didn't mean to touch your cart.
The only thing that would have been
I was
better
just
is
trying
if
to
she would have
help.
like instantly like pulled the mace out and just like hit you with the mace.
Well, like 3 months ago, that wouldn't have happened. But now it's like, you touched my cart. Yeah, you're not wearing a mask. Did you give me the COVID? Like, it's such a weird world, man.
She pulls out one of those Bic lighters and just like lights the handlebar on fire to disinfect it, just like singes it.
And then she grabs it while it's hot as a power move.
So I've been struggling. I've been struggling with helping people as well. So where I'm at, things aren't as shut down as most of the country.
Right.
I am that guy who always holds the door open for people.
Mm-hmm.
I love to do that. And now I don't know. Do I hold the door open? Do I not? And every time I guess wrong. So I hold the door open, and like it ends up being an elderly woman, and she's like,
go.
Oh, hell no, get away from me.
Yeah.
Right? And then I won't touch the door, and then I'll get that rude look from somebody that's like, seriously, you're not going to hold the door? It's like, I can't win right now. I don't know to hold the door open. I don't know not to.
All the polite impulses,
you're right.
like they're
I reach
wrong.
the door and I just scream. I don't know what to do. I get to the handle and I just go.
And that's how you got COVID.
You're right.
So speaking of holding doors open, I've always kind of felt personally attacked when you hold the door open for somebody, and then as they walk through, they still put the arm out to like make sure you're not going to slam the door in their face. Like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like there's like a big group of people that won't trust that you're actually going to hold the door open the entire time.
Yeah.
And it's
I hate it when they don't.
Those people got hurt at one point in their life.
Somebody
and
hurt
they've
them.
Never recovered. Somebody said, "Hey, come on in," and then like,
bam!
Oh, I need to let go now.
And then the door, they were wearing flip flops, and the crack of the door just barely nicked like those creases on the back of your heel, you know?
Yeah.
And then like it didn't heal properly because it's in the crease, so it's always moving and shutting and opening. So like it got infected, and then they lost their foot. That's how they got hurt.
Yeah.
Were they amputees, Tim? Were these people amputees? Did you notice?
I almost made them an amputee. Giving me that dirty look or holding that door open. Like, man, I'm going to slam the door in your face now.
Corbin's description of a heel problem reminds me that my bed frame is about this far off the ground. It's a wooden bed frame. There's about this much space. So like 3 inches, 2.5, 3 inches of space from the floor to the, the frame that goes around. Super easy to just stick your foot right underneath and not think about it. But then when you go to take a step, every time.
I'm also, granted, I'm in a different situation. This has nothing to do with a heel. This is just the inconvenience of COVID in my life right now. And that now that I am feeling healthier, I've noticed that I have like 5 weeks worth of just hair that I have bedhead everywhere. It's on the side, it's on the back. My hair hasn't been this long, and I don't know how long. And so I had to text the lady who her name is.
Just gonna hold that there.
For the audio listeners, Tim is flipping Corbin off because he has receding hair.
I also have 5 weeks of bedhead.
And
Tim got an unfortunate buzz cut about 5 weeks ago, and it still looks like he got his buzz cut yesterday.
So I texted the gal who cuts my hair, and I was like, my gosh, I cannot wait to like get my hair cut. And then she asked how I was, and I told her like what happened. She was like, I'll drop everything you want. Just let me know when you want your hair cut. You can come over. I'll do it in my house. And I was like, great.
I thought we were embracing our Viking roots and growing our hair out.
I know, but
weak.
You actually have a great start because you can start like the cool Viking braid down the middle. You've already set up for that.
I don't have to dye my hair.
Just let it.
I got all this.
Oh God!
Look at that.
For those audio listeners out there, Corbin's showing off his terrible roots because he dyes his hair platinum blonde.
I prefer the term lilac.
I don't.
Well, platinum blonde isn't accurate enough term because I strip 100% of the color, so it almost looks gray.
It's white.
He's trying to make himself look like sexy grandpa.
Yeah.
White hair.
So I have a couple other things that I wrote down. Do you want me to save them for another podcast, or do you want me to bring them up?
No, bring them on. Because honestly, the only other thing I have to bring as far as poo stories have to do with COVID. And just like, man, the poos were awful. Especially when I got over the COVID. And I thought that I could eat normal foods. Now, I should have known better. Because like, the trippiest thing about the sickness was like,
so we're getting into it now.
We're getting into the poop.
No,
now.
we're getting into the poop. We're not getting into the COVID. But like on the back end, pun intended, of the sickness, it was kind of like having food poisoning where nothing sounded good. Only a few things. Honestly, the only things that ever sounded good were things that were just bready in nature. Like pizza always sounded good, or cinnamon rolls sounded good, but everything else just like, yeah. There was one day where like I kind of felt good, and I was like, I'm just gonna try to eat normal food. And I tried to eat normal food, just some chicken nugs, and that was a huge mistake. I ended up vomiting and then vomiting out of my butt. And that's... Why are you playing that?
Sorry.
Out loud. That's going to be in the recording forever now.
You shouldn't have reacted. I muted my mic on the stream. I was trying to make sure the stream looked good.
Oh my gosh. So
you should have stayed professional, man.
So I was vomiting on my butt a lot. But in the midst of the sickness, the poops weren't too bad because I wasn't really eating anything. It was on the back end, again, pun intended, where I thought it was safe to eat, but it wasn't safe to eat.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't.
Did you ever have like a stinky fart that you thought was actually going to kill you because your breathing was so bad prior to the fart as it was?
No, because I didn't trust any fart. So I would immediately just go to the toilet. So the toilet consumed all the stank.
Oh, God.
When you're that sick, you can't trust anything. If there's a new feeling, it's not your friend. And it's not normal. So you take precautions in any way that you can.
Oh,
jeez.
Man.
All right, so since the podcast is probably going to be a little bit shorter this week because we're going to listen to Corbin's COVID, and then we're going to get into what we've been doing since the last recording. It's probably not going to take as long as if we deep dive into a topic. I'm going to go ahead and bring up these other couple things.
Bring it up to the surface, baby. Let it bubble up.
So, the other day, I ordered Sugar Fire for lunch. They had a salmon salad as their special.
That looks good.
The Sugar Fire Farmington is not that good compared to the other Sugar Fires. I'm honestly almost always disappointed, but they still tend to trap me with their specials. Every now and then they'll lure me in, and then I'll eat it, and I'm like, this was mediocre. You fooled me again.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, you're out.
Well, they lured me in again, and I went to go get the salad, which actually was pretty good. I ordered on phone because they're doing
curbside.
Well, it's you can go in and pick up now. You can't go in and sit, but they've opened up to where you don't have to do curbside. You can walk into their pickup window and pick it up inside. So I called ahead. It'll be ready in like 25 minutes. Cool. Made my order. They didn't take my payment over the phone. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. No big deal. So I go there. When I get there, there's a couple in front of me, an older couple, middle-aged, and they've got this huge order, like they're feeding their church or something. Like it's tons of stuff. Big bags. Dude's filling up little sauces for them. Going and filling up all these drinks because you can't fill up your own drink right now. You can't contaminate everything. So they fill up a drink for you. So while they're doing all this, like the dude who's kind of seems like he's in charge, like was walking by and doing stuff. And he's like, they'll be right with you, man. You had the salmon order, right? And I was like, yeah, no big deal. And he's like, he'll get it for you in just a second as soon as he's done with them. So then I see Travis, my brother-in-law, and he was like on the other side of the wall and like pokes his head out. He's like, hey. I was like, hey. So we just talked for a minute. They brought my food out and his food out at the same time. He had waited in line and ordered and already paid. They brought my food out. Dude was like, here you go. does everything look right? Sorry for your wait. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I was supposed to have a drink. Are you guys filling up the drinks? I saw you guys doing it. He's like, yeah. Told him my drink. Filled it up, brought it back. And he's like, okay, have a good day. Turned and walked away. I'm talking to Travis, deep in conversation about how Boba Fett has been cast in Mandalorian. And I walk out with Travis, get in my car, and drive away. I didn't pay.
Hello. What?
I didn't pay.
I was waiting for
We've got
juice.
a criminal on the cast today, boys.
So then I wrestled with myself. I only get 30 minutes for lunch, so there was no turning back to go pay. Like, I had to get back to work. So I was like, do I call and say, I didn't pay? Can I pay? Or do I just let it go? And I had an internal debate until I got back to work. And then I just ate my food and went back to life. So
and let it go.
My question to you all is, what would you have done in that situation?
Let it go.
Just let it go. Like,
let it go. They're not going to notice. They're
not
care.
going to notice. And honestly, the fact that you got your food at the same time as Travis is enough for me to like want some sort of justice. Because your food should have been ready.
Oh,
beforehand.
yeah. I did wait a long time. I waited probably 20 minutes for my food after, because I ordered at 11:30.
For a salmon salad?
Well, because they only have a handful of people in there. So they got one dude helping these people, another person cooking, and a manager man walking around. Anyways.
Yeah. So that's not too bad. That's something you can live with. I know a guy, I'm not going to say names. I know a guy who would take his TV. He'd go buy a new TV. Okay. He'd go buy a badass new TV.
No.
And he would take his old broken ass shitty TV.
No.
And he'd put it in the box of the new TV and then go back to Walmart and return the new TV and then just walk out.
See, that bothers me, one, because that's a big purchase item, but also two,
right?
If he sealed it back up to make it look like it was still sealed,
it just goes back on the shelf.
Back on the shelf. So somebody else buys that broken TV, wasting their time and money. That bothers me.
He did it multiple times. The second time, he came to the realization that was what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
He walks into Walmart.
It was you, wasn't it?
It wasn't me. It was my dad.
I'm not going to name names.
It was my dad.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
He walks into Walmart and he says, "Hey, I just bought this nice TV. Open up the box and see what's inside." And it'd be like this little crappy 27-inch TV. And it's like in the box of like a 50-inch TV.
So he played the victim.
He'd be like, "What, you guys not check your returns or something? Like, this is not a 50-inch TV. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. Just, here's your money back." He's like, no, I'm taking my business elsewhere. So that's how we got two of our nice TVs when I was a poor child.
Oh my God.
And I know the story is true because he brought me with him.
Oh, geez. Oh, man.
So you have nothing to worry about with the salmon salad. You're totally good. Totally good.
Wow. That's intense.
I feel dirty for saying that story now.
You're fine. I feel like your story sparked a memory, but now the memory's gone. So I have no. That's how it works in my brain sometimes. So the last thing I want to bring up. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, it's a short story, but it just reminded me of that one time that we were at Black Friday. It's how I got the current TV that I have now.
Yeah.
Where I went for a very specific.
Well,
television.
that wasn't your fault, and you didn't do any. You didn't do any.
But I felt bad, and I know that you told me that I shouldn't have. But I went there for a very specific TV. They had a nice big TV. I forget what the inch is, but it's a big inch, and it was nice. It was 4K, and they were technically out. They didn't receive the palette of that television, and they only received, and instead they received an extra palette of that version of television as a curved TV, which is more expensive. And because I was there to buy the original flat, I got the curve for that price. But anyone who was buying the Curve genuinely had to pay the Curve price. So I got my television for literally like almost half the price.
Well, what happened was, what happened with your specific situation, Walmart, you wait in line on Black Friday, you get a voucher that says, I'm buying this TV. You go up to the register, you pay with that voucher, then you go outside and wait in line in your car, and they grab your voucher and bring the TV out to you. You'd already paid, done all that. They don't even have those TVs. So dude just brought you another TV. And it just happened to be the newer, nicer version of the TV that you wanted.
And it's funny
again,
enough,
it's not.
It made me a believer in curved televisions too. I used to think they were silly, but I had never actually experienced one. But I was like, well, I guess I have this now. And now that I've lived with it, curved is better than flat. But I felt dirty in the moment because I was like, is this? And you were just like, just go, just go, just go.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, but I feel.
You have nothing to worry about in that situation.
That was management
didn't
at that
deceive
time.
anybody. That was like them saying, hey, we've already taken your money. Will you take this as a substitute? That's Gucci.
I know, but it was literally like a $375 upgrade.
Something tells me that Walmart probably isn't hurting too bad. They're probably all right.
Yeah, they're fine.
Yeah. But what's your other story?
So the last thing is just real simple. In order to reach a wider audience for our most recent trivia, which we've taken a break on. If you're listening to this and you're in the Facebook group, you know that we've been doing weekly trivia to help combat the quarantine life we've been dealing with, give everybody something to do, something fun, chance to win $50, maybe a little bit more, depending on how big the turnout was. We had some where we did. We had one, the Harry Potter one, didn't we give out two $50 rewards, three $50 rewards?
Yeah, Harry Potter, we gave out
250?
250s, and then we gave out, I think we gave out a third place prize as well. That was something small.
So anyways,
a mug or something from us.
We had, our last one was Star Wars, and before we got into Star Wars, I joined like every Star Wars group I possibly could. And let me tell you, Star Wars fans suck. Yeah. I hate them.
Preach. The worst fans.
They're the worst.
Worst fan group in the world.
I was so naive in my belief that Star Wars fans weren't what people said on the internet, but these Facebook groups are exactly what is described on the internet. They hate each other. They hate Star Wars. They like, they're a bunch of trolls. This movie only, and if you don't like this movie only and you like that movie, I'm gonna tell you you're a piece of shit. And
well, I mean, anyone who likes Last Jedi is a piece of shit.
Oh,
like just saying,
I kind of like it.
And there's actually one Star Wars group that's actually pretty funny because there's this dude who posts he only likes Empire and Revenge of the Sith, and that's it. And boy posts all the time. He's like the biggest troll, and everybody just makes fun of him, and that actually is pretty funny. But I'm telling you, Star Wars fans suck. Me and you, Corbin, me and you, Tim, we're the outliers.
I got
Star Wars fans are terrible.
I got destroyed for Star Wars trivia because I misspelt Boba Fett. Yeah. I mean, come on, guys. Like, I'm trying to do this and multitask. I got a family. It cost you $5 and you had a chance to win 55.
Yeah, also misspelled boss.
My extra B didn't ruin your chances at winning freaking trivia. Okay, so let's just calm it down. You did also say
it was the Knights of Kylo Ren. I can't believe I didn't catch that one when I played it.
Yeah, I blame you. You're the bigger Star Wars fan. I said, hey, I need you to play through this because I threw this thing together and I don't know what's right or wrong.
Article, though. Like, it's still... And I feel bad too because the last two trivias you've had to do by yourself, and then like after people were complaining, I was like, "Sorry, Tim."
and then I
would have caught them.
And then I looked at like Clayton said, we give away the bulk of what we earn. Like we give away almost everything, and we keep a few bucks to help pay for like Zoom, right? So we can give you guys this podcast. And I got destroyed over 2 typos. And I looked at the time I spent building this trivia versus what we kept. I was like, this isn't even $1 an hour. Like it cost me like 7 hours to build this trivia, and we made like $10 on it or something like that. It's like, this is stupid. So we gave trivia a break this week, mostly for my mental sanity. But based on the poll, maybe we'll bring it back next week. A lot of people said that they still want us to keep doing it. So,
but here's the thing.
But I'm going to put a slide in the beginning, and it's going to be a disclaimer side, and it's going to be like, I'm a middle-aged man who's trying to bring you joy for like $5. So give me a freaking break. There's going to be typos. Deal with it.
Here's the thing, though. I was really looking at the people who voted to keep it, and at least a third of those votes are people who haven't even done a single trivia, which
just
is interesting to me.
I'm like twisting it even more.
Well, because they know it's a good idea, but it's not for them.
Yeah, but the intention
let me tell you, if you're watching right now,
post is like he even pre-framed that the attendance has gone down a little bit, so we're just wondering, like, do you guys want us to keep doing this or just like chill it for a bit? So for someone to like just vote because it's a good idea isn't even necessarily reading the pre-frame of the question, because it's not helpful data.
Yeah. Like the last thing we're trying to do trivia to like give you guys something fun to do. And like we said, we're really not making any money off it. If you just look at how many people are competing versus what we give away, we're giving away pretty much everything. We don't want anybody to think that we're being greedy and like pushing something and like trying to pressure people to do trivia. Like it's truly just to have fun. And even if you say it's not for you, it really is for you, because we have a wide range of questions. Like we've had some trivias where people are getting like the average score is like a B+. So, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm like a moderate Harry Potter fan or whatever. And they're doing well in it. But most importantly, they're having fun. So you guys should try trivia, even if you're not like a trivia kind of person, because you'll have fun. And even if you don't do well in the actual trivia, we put so much time into the secondary slide. So there's a slide that's got the question, and then after it, there's a info slide. And that's where we're putting like lots of cool facts or fun video clips. So
trying to teach and like, did you know kind of stuff.
Yeah. So even the people who like haven't done well in a trivia, most of them have reached out to me at one point and said, hey, I totally sucked at trivia, but it was freaking awesome to watch the YouTube clips and just like be reminded how much I loved that fight in a Marvel movie, or I had no idea that all of this was happening in the background. So give it a shot if we keep it going, because the secondary information alone is worth the price of admission, in my opinion.
Yeah. My 2 favorite stories from the trivias was when we did the Marvel and the 9-year-old one. Mm-hmm. And then on the Harry Potter, it was my coworker's parents that won. And, they're like, even though you guys are parents, they're like parents, like your parents' age. You know what I mean? It's like a couple of 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds won the Harry Potter
they were
trivia.
so excited too. So excited.
That cracked me up.
But that 9-year-old, that was a good story. 9-year-old who, like, the dad
he stayed up late. He let him stay up late because he did his homework just so he could see it, like the winning announcement. That was cute.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, Dave's been a big supporter of trivia. So, but that's all my things I wanted to bring to Chit Chat Star Wars. And let me tell you, the how do I want to put this? The belief that the prequel movies are better than the sequel movies, or just good movies to begin with, is very prevalent. Very prevalent. And you know what else is prevalent? You know what else is prevalent? They don't like The Mandalorian.
No.
Yes.
What?
That's not possible.
They don't like The Mandalorian.
They don't know Star Wars.
And there's a ton of people.
No soul.
There's a ton of people that are like, Disney canon's not my canon. Legends canon is only canon. That stuff's not real. And I'm just like, listen, people, I went through denial 5 years ago also, but guess what? I'm a man. And it's true. It took a long time for Clayton to admit that he has 3 bookcases filled with fan fiction. filled with flipping fan fiction. Might as well just start a bonfire with it. It means nothing now.
I remember the first time I told you that it was fan fiction. You kind of like the double take, and you're just like silent for a second because you hadn't thought about it that way before. And you're just like, I think PCV died that day.
Yeah. They're good stories.
Corbin's such an asshole.
I will talk about new canon, though, later when we're talking about stuff that we've been doing. So that's all I've got. I've driven most of this chit-chat. You guys got anything before we move on?
No, I've realized that I have no life during quarantine. So all I'm doing is watching stuff. So I'll have a time on the back end.
I have to know.
Mm-hmm.
How are the girls?
The girls are good. So they're actually at Mimi and Papa's, which is a huge relief for us right now because working at home with a 6 and an 8-year-old is incredibly difficult. There's just like nonstop interruptions. So every week, Grandma and Grandpa have come and taken the kids for 2 or 3 days, which has been awesome for Jody and I because we get to sit down and actually like focus on our job and get ahead for the week. Last weekend was a cool weekend for us. So we went hiking, which was kind of what we decided our thing is now. So the kids love it. It's something you could do during quarantine, good exercise. So we've been hiking almost every weekend.
Not if you're in California. It's very specific ways you have to hike in California right now.
Very, very different in California than Ashland, Missouri. But we did our first camp out last weekend. And I looked over at Jody. It probably took Jody and I an hour to put the tent up. And when I say Jody and I mean mostly Jody, because she loves that kind of thing. And she's like, nope, this is my thing. I want to do the tent. You start working on the fire and all that. So it took us probably an hour to get the tent up. And I looked at her and I said, I don't think we're going to make it more than an hour tonight, just because we're sleeping on the ground. It's hard as a rock. We didn't have any mats down. It was just literally sleeping bag inside the tent with the dogs and 2 kids. It was like 50 degrees or 45 degrees that night. So it was cold as fuck. But they made it. They made it till 6:30 in the morning, which was shocking to me. I got 0 sleep because I wake up with every single sound, and there's all kinds of sounds on a windy night. But it was fun. The kids had a blast. So hopefully we can keep that stuff going, do some bonfires in the backyard, and get them in tune with nature during quarantine. Hopefully that's their takeaway.
I used to think they were called bond fires with a D. Which to me still makes more sense because you're bonding around the fire. What the hell is a bond?
Talk about some of your other misconceptions, Corbin, regarding phrases.
Well, so I used to think it was a Roman Coke. And even like all through high school, no one ever caught it. It wasn't until I was in Mexico for the first time and I was ordering and I was like, can I have a Roman Coke? And the fucking bartender was like, ¿Cómo? Can I have a Roman Coke? Okay. Can I have a Roman Coke? Oh, Roman Coke.
This whole time I was sitting there like, what the fuck is a Roman Coke? And I didn't even understand. Like I would have been that bartender like, huh? Roman Coke?
So I guess like any other time I've said it, I guess because sometimes I slur my words or I mumble, I've just like gotten by with no one catching me. But it took this motherfucker to say that, huh? I, for a good portion of my life, thought that the phrase was the ghost is clear, which again still makes sense. But apparently it's the coast is clear.
The ghost is clear makes 0 sense. It makes no sense.
It still makes sense, Tim.
It might not make sense in context, but it's accurate. So I never questioned it. I just thought it was the ghost is clear. And I probably didn't figure out that was like later teens that I learned that one. I even have like very specific memories of Clayton and I in Fredericktown playing with our Beanie Babies as they were like going on missions throughout the house and me saying, the ghost is clear. So yeah. Those are really the big 3. Yeah. I know there have been others in my life, but those 3 are the big 3. Bonfires, the ghost is clear, and Roman Cokes.
I think you should keep Roman Cokes going.
Should I?
Yeah, I just go for it, man.
To be honest, until the bartender corrected me, I didn't know it was rum in the Coke. So
you didn't even know what was in the Coke? You just knew it was boozy Coke?
I just knew it was Roman
y'all got
Coke.
Y'all got any that Coke that gets you drunk?
Oh, Corbin.
Roman Dr. Pepper, Roman Sprite. Just boozy soda.
Y'all got any bottles of Roman back there?
I don't want any of that Coke. I just want the Roman.
Huh? The Roman.
Oh, man.
All right. Well, before we dive into what we've been doing nerd-wise to tie us over in between recordings, Corbin, why don't you talk about how we've been, or how you've been impacted by COVID, and therefore we've been impacted by COVID. Like, I feel like I've had it now because you had it. You know what I mean? The same thing.
You haven't had it.
So
I thought he had it yesterday because he completely ghosted us for an entire day.
Oh, yeah.
We thought you were dead.
Nah, I'm just, like Corbin said, I'm like Don Draper, who I just disappear sometimes. Just drive off to San Francisco for 12 hours.
Which, by the way, I finally finished that show. I'll save it for later. So COVID. Well, sometimes it's like such a natural segue, but it's like, technically that would be what I've been doing. So,
right.
So, okay. For those who listened to the last podcast, I wasn't on that one. Clayton and Tim did it solo, and then Tim, they played the interview that Tim did with author Paul Tremblay, which is like, for anyone who hasn't watched it, you need to go watch it because this was a huge get for the podcast. And I'm super proud of Tim for not only nabbing him, but like the interview was done effortlessly. Like you would think that Tim is speaking to famous people before. And it's an easy 15 minutes, would you say? Is it 15 or 20?
Yeah, it's about 15 minutes, and I was terrified as I did it. I was like scrambling to make sure my computer worked. I had all these tech issues. I forgot my outline. So it was like literally just a conversation, and I think it turned out okay.
Yeah, it turned out really good. You know, I wouldn't say he's an up and coming author, but he's definitely becoming more famous as he's won 2 Bram Stoker awards.
Mm-hmm.
And the book that Tim was interviewing about, Head Full of Ghosts, is being made into a movie. Mm-hmm. So again, it's not only a good get for us, but that episode especially will just become more relevant later. So that was awesome. But in that episode, you know, Clayton and Tim said that I had COVID. So the last episode that I was in was when we did our Harry Potter deep dive into what the franchise meant to us and where we saw the universe going if we had a say in the matter. So when we recorded that episode, that was truly day one of me just going downhill. I was already running close to 104 temperature that day. I almost bowed out of that podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say, we almost canceled that podcast because you were feeling sick.
Yeah, we tried to cancel it. We tried to like trump you and say, nope, we're not going to record if you're running a fever. It's not the end of the world. And magically.
Yeah, this was after days that you were texting us saying, man, I just don't feel good.
Yeah. So this was in the last like 5 minutes leading up to like when we said we were going to record, I finally just bit the bullet and said, yeah, we'll just do it, because there was 4, technically 5 if you count Clayton, but there's 4 of us who were mainly talking, and there was just no foreseeable date in the future that we were going to be able to get all 4 of us together. So I was like, I'll just do it. I ended up changing my shirt 3 times before we recorded because I was sweating so much, and I was just trying to find a shirt that was comfortable to wear. So that was like day 1 of the sickness. And in totality, was sick for almost 4.5 to 5 weeks. So for the first 2 weeks, I was running 103 fever every day. I became like, the shortness of breath only became like more real as like the time went on. Like it was becoming physically exhausting to even just like form sentences. Like I couldn't even like get a couple words out without, having to catch my breath. So with that, I became like super tired. I couldn't like move. I never really quite lost my sense of appetite, but I couldn't eat a whole lot during that time. I ended up going to the ER maybe 3 times. I for sure went to the ER twice. I went there once because I technically got tested for COVID and it came back negative, but the test was done incorrectly. But
there's also a ton of false
there have been a lot of cases of false negatives. But what I mean by this is like the swab test that's done is like an ice pick to the brain. They take a swab and they go so far up your nasal cavity that it's supposed to be excruciatingly painful. If anyone who knows me knows that I am a super squeamish person. I give blood semi on the reg just because I have O negative blood, and so like it's a good blood to donate. But I am squeamish every time they put the needle in. The entire time I'm freaking out. So I walked away from that experience thinking that it was pleasant, meaning I already knew it was done incorrectly because I should have been in extreme discomfort. But they said they were going to swab for 20 seconds, and it was like less than 10 seconds. They pulled it out, and I was like, okay. So it came back negative, and I just nothing could explain what was wrong with me. My doctor put me on an antibiotic, thinking that maybe I had influenza or walking pneumonia, and I was just getting worse. And so I just ended up biting the bullet, and I was like, I don't care how much it costs. I have to go to the ER. So I went to the ER, and after they examined me, they had switched me to an assumed COVID positive because nothing else could explain what was going on. And they basically said that I fit the bill. Everything that was going on with me, the way that I sounded, the way my readings were and stuff, they were just like, yeah, you have COVID based on what we've seen. And I was like, okay, what do? And they're like, no, you have to wait. You have to let it run its course. And this will be the phrase I will hate for the rest of my life, because every time I experienced extreme discomfort over the past 4.5 weeks, they just said, you have to let it run its course. But on like literally towards like the end of the 2-week period, I started to like get more control of my breath back, because like I was doing breathing exercises to help control my breathing. I was trying to do some more walking, which is one of the recommendations that they said, like one of the worst things you can do for COVID is be bedridden. They said that actually ends up worsening the symptoms, and that's when you can get into the danger zone. So you have to just get up, you have to walk, you have to try to breathe fresh air, and you have to do just deep breath exercises. So towards day 14, I'm like, okay, like I'm starting to feel better. And then like a brick in the face, nowhere, my tonsils flare up. My throat, it looks larger at this point. And it was like knives in my throat. And I was like, what is happening? And within the first 48 hours of that happening, it got to the point where I was like drooling because I could not swallow without white knuckling. And with that, it was increasingly harder to eat. I could barely drink anything. I ended up for 24 hours straight just drinking hot tea, because even though it hurt, it was kind of like a good kind of pain because it was so hot on my throat. But anything cold was like excruciating. Also to note, my tonsils were completely white, and they were the most disgusting thing ever. There was actually like a smell just like in my mouth because it was just so pustule and infected. It was disgusting. I even woke up in the middle of the night and the room smelled like my tonsils. It was so bad. So the other visit to the ER was because I literally just couldn't take it anymore. I needed some sort of reprieve, and I didn't know what was going on. So I went to the ER, and in totality, I was at the ER for 8 hours that day. I go in, and the only reason why I was going to the ERs is no urgent care would touch me with a 10-foot pole, because I was the assumed COVID positive, even though I was at this point on the back end of the COVID. So the ER was my only choice for seeing someone. So they take me back and they start doing readings. They notice like I have this rash all over my body, which my primary doctor and I first thought that the rash was because he had started me on an antibiotic before we knew that I had COVID, and he thought that I was having an allergic reaction, so I had stopped it. And another doctor came in and he was like, I think you have mono. And I was like, what? And he was like, this is not an allergic reaction to the drug. This is you having mono and how your body on mono is reacting to the drug. So I'm not allergic to the medication. It's just not taking kindly to my body while it's infected with mono. They took my blood. They did a mono and strep test. And sure enough, the mono came back positive. And when the doc came back in, I was like, "Doc, just for shits and giggles, is it possible that this has been mono the entire time?" And he laughed and said, "No." He goes, after he laughed, he said, "Honestly, you're just really unlucky. Again, nothing can explain what you had except for COVID. I think you literally just had COVID, and while your immune system was shot, you got mono in addition to." And I was like, okay. And I was waiting there for the nurse to come back in so I could possibly get something for my pain. And I sat there for about 2 hours until one nurse finally came in. And I was like, this is how I pump. Man, it was so swollen that I had to open my jaw so I could breathe because it was becoming hard to breathe with my tonsils. And I was kind of, and she was like, "You're the one with mono, right?" I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "We actually have a real emergency coming in, so we actually have to kick you out of your room." And I was like, "Okay." And so she unplugged all my stuff, and I was like in a gown, and they put me in a wheelchair and shoved me off into a corner while like this cardiac arrest patient came in and was in the room. So then I'm just like sitting there in the hallway because there's no rooms available. And one doctor comes up and he like pokes my side and he goes, "I'm Dr. So-and-so. How are you?" I was like, "I'm fine, but I'm really in pain." He was like, "Someone will be with you in a minute." And like walked away. I was like, okay. And I was there for about 45 minutes. And finally the room opened up. And once I was like in that room, I had a new nurse and I was like, "I need something. I've been here for 6 hours. I am in excruciating pain." My pain was about a 7 or 8 out of 10. I was like, "I need something." And so then he went back and got me like a lidocaine solution, which is just a numbing solution. It's very thick. It's like a syrup. And that took some of the edge off. And then I was there for like another 2 hours. And then I left with a lidocaine prescription to like help with the edge, but it still didn't do a whole lot. And then so I was dealing with that for an additional 2 weeks. And it was literally hell on earth. It's interesting because I was asked by Macy which of the two experiences were the worst. And it's a little hard to judge because the mono was so recent, but I'm almost more inclined to say that the mono was worse than the COVID only because the pain was so bad. I've never experienced pain like that before. The COVID, you just feel like you have nothing. I mean, it's a discomforting feeling and it messes with you mentally because you kind of get freaked out at like, man, I've never had to like struggle to breathe before. It's like, I can't communicate, I can't walk. So there's a lot of like mental aspects that made it difficult to get through, but I've never experienced pain like that. And for me, that was way worse. So that's been like the past 4.5 weeks of my life. It wasn't till this past Tuesday, or maybe it was Monday, but it was this week that was the first week that I'm actually able to like just talk. Like the Sunday night was like the night that the tonsils just like broke. All the pus like went away, which means I swallowed it all, which is just disgusting. But the pain was gone and I could finally start to talk again. But it was awful. And it's weird because like when it's happening, it feels like it's never ending. But now that I'm on the other side, it's kind of like this blurry dream where it's weird for me to think that like I'm on the 5th week now and like 5 weeks have passed. Like it's really trippy because it doesn't feel that it was that long now. But when I was in it, it felt like eternity.
Yeah, it's brutal.
So, dang, dude.
Absolutely brutal. So I had mono a couple of years ago, and it was stacked with another virus. I ran a fever for like something like 2 straight weeks or something crazy, but I never had the pain with my mono. So it sounds like yours was exponentially worse. And it could have been just like the doctor said, the COVID just had you in such a bad spot with your immune system anyway, that the mono just wiped you out. I was just feverish and exhausted nonstop. And the thing that sucks about mono, I don't know if you'll experience this, but for me, anytime I start to get sick, I am just like, I crash. Whereas before, like, didn't really get sick very often. And when I would, it wouldn't be a big deal. Now it's like I start to run a fever and I'm like out cold. So it's like just wrecked my immune system moving forward. So hopefully that's not your story as well. But I think that's pretty common with mono, is it changes how your body reacts to illness.
So that's another thing. With the mono in particular and the COVID as an attributing agent, my liver I'm like in the 30 percentile of people who get mono. My liver is abnormally swollen. So I guess when you get mono, your liver swells for whatever reason. And that's partially why I was getting my rash when I was on the antibiotics. And I honestly wished that I could remember the exact numbers, because when my primary was actually explaining to me the readings that they found in my blood, it actually ended up sounding freakier than like when the ER doctor was talking to me about it. But when they're looking at your like liver readings, there's like 3 different levels of lipids that they read. Mm-hmm. And a normal average liver, the lipids are in the 2 digits, like it doesn't go above like 80. 2 of my readings are in the 400s and one of them is 800. So my primary was like, this isn't normal and it's not something to be like shrugged off. And he was like, don't play contact sports. And then he was like, well, that should be a real big problem right now. But if you were to trip, watch how you fall, because then like, I guess my liver could fucking pop. I don't even know. But he said that I would be risk at internal bleeding if I were to fall on it wrong. So in like 2 more weeks, I have to go back for more blood testing to see if at that point the mono will be completely out of my system. And they want to see like, is my liver normal or is there like something else going on? Mm-hmm. So
damn,
the story keeps on going.
The story continues.
Which means I can't have any White Claws.
You sound exponentially better. I mean, we talked about this last time, and I remember Morgan or somebody sent a video of you laughing at my horrible attempt at taking selfies for a thumbnail. And I thought you literally were going to die as you were laughing. So it's good. It's good to see you laugh and not turn purple at the same time.
Yeah, there were, and honestly, like, I was super happy for like the support system that I had. There were a couple days where like it was freaky, but most of the time of the 4 weeks was just riding it out and feeling like you're just being tortured every day. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't say that there was necessarily like any point where I was like super scared. It was just the absolute worst sensations to experience. So that was my bout with COVID.
Well, we're glad that you're starting to feel better, and hopefully there's nothing else going on there with the liver, and you're back to your old dumbass self here in 2 weeks.
What up, yo?
He's already there.
Yeah, I can tell. So it's a good segue. So you had a couple of weeks where you really couldn't do much. What did you do? Did you binge any shows, any movies? Get us caught up.
I did. So like on the days that I felt like the crappiest and the worst, I didn't feel like diving into anything like new. So like on days where I felt my absolute shittiest were the days that I watched Seinfeld. It was just like my go-to like happy feel show of like, I've seen these before. I don't really need to pay attention. I might get a laugh at it, but if I fall asleep, I don't care. But on the days where I felt the most lucid, I finally caught up on Attack on Titan, which is an anime. After catching up on that, I finished Mad Men because once the last season went on Netflix, I had stopped shy of the last 6 episodes and I never went back to it. So I finally finished watching that. Terrible ending to a show, one of the worst I've ever seen. I know ending a show is hard, but a show like Mad Men is so character-based that basically like the storyline threads where these characters end, some of them were so questionable that it just didn't feel right to me. And for anyone who has watched Mad Men, my personal take is the show should have ended once their company was finally like bought out at the end of season 7, because the last 4 episodes after that, it seemed like they were just trying to write something. Because Don's like final story and Betty getting cancer is just seems so out of left field and strange that it just didn't sit right with me. I am downloading a few games. I downloaded Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I started playing that. And I got distracted by 2 different survival sims. One is Stranded Deep, which is you're stranded on an island in the middle of the ocean, and you have to survive and build stuff. And then through playing that, I stumbled upon a survival sim called The Forest, which I've never screamed so much in my entire life playing this game. You are on an airplane that crash lands, and as you wake up, you had a son named Timmy, and as you look up, there's like this weird looking creature covered in blood that carries your son away, and then you pass out. And then when you wake back up, you have to now survive and find Timmy. And so like you're immediately looking around the plane for supplies, whether it be food, drinks, a weapon. You find an axe is given to you right away. And then as you leave the plane, you see like luggage scattered everywhere. Then you can open all the luggage and you can find supplies like cloth or batteries and stuff. And from then on, it's like you have to explore this island. You have to figure out what's going on. And it's absolutely terrifying. And yeah, that's probably been the biggest thing that I have consumed. And then there's been other movies that I've watched, and I've tried to write some reviews for them while I was in quarantine. And I caught up on all of the Marvel movies because we're going to do a Marvel show here in a little bit. So I did a marathon through the MCU, and I have a pretty clear head on my shoulders now on which movies reign supreme and which ones are unsung heroes that I didn't actually think of before. And others that are overrated, others that I used to think were really good, but aren't worth your time anymore.
Interesting.
I bet your list is more similar to mine than what it was before you re-binged all of Marvel.
I still don't think so.
What are you playing what are you playing your games on for those who don't know?
PS4. The PlayStation 4, baby. That's what I've been playing them on. I tried, because the Destiny was doing the Guardians games, and I tried to turn it on. I like immediately turned it off. I just I could not.
Have you seen what's going on right now?
The community event the amount of stuff that needs to be done. Like, I think MTash tweeted out like
3 million Seraph events on each planet.
Doesn't like add up to like even being possible. They're already downscaling the quantity. But man, I turned it on and I was like, I can't. I turned it off. I've even reunited with my old clan. They invited me to the clan stuff, and I've been in the chat. And I'm just like, I can't. They asked me to raid. I'm like, I just don't want to. I'm sorry. Like, I want to. I do. But it's just not in me right now. Destiny's just kind of stale for me.
Yeah, they actually just tweeted out they are implementing a hot fix so progress is times 5 what it was. So 1 counts as 5, and then on weekends it's going to count as 10. So should help out. But most big content creators for Destiny are like, I'm not even participating. This is stupid. Like, they've been grinding Seraph events, which is hard to do, for 2 days, and they're at like 5% of one of the bars. There's 3 bars they have to complete. Good God. Anyways, that's a tangent that probably nobody but me and you understand.
One movie that I watched, that I rewatched, I should say, that I forgot how much I loved was Django. I watched Django the other day, and I just, after watching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I walked out of the movie thinking, like, I think this is Tarantino's best. I was head over heels for it. But rewatching Django, that might be my favorite Tarantino. It's just, for me, from start to finish, it is just a great story. And the acting is so good. And Christoph Waltz, I think, shines brighter in that one than he did in Inglourious Basterds.
I do really like Django.
And the music.
The music is really good.
The music is so good. Oh, man. Yeah, I was trying to think if like there was any other movies that maybe I had watched that I hadn't seen. There may have been one, but I have to reiterate, there was because of how shitty I felt most of the time, it was either finishing things that I already started or just running relapse, because it's like I had like a creativity like sapped from me. Like I was uninspired to like dive into anything new. So
I can feel that.
That's kind of like, I had also intended to write more quarantine reviews, but like just as I got more sick, I was just like,
yeah.
Just good. By Corbin.
Watch.
Skip.
So the highlight was the Clone Wars. That was the highlight, I think. The Clone Wars finale blew my mind. Blew my mind. So good.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are watching this, you like Star Wars and you haven't watched the Clone Wars, you're sleeping on some of the best Star Wars content that's out there.
Yes.
I will say that I am, as Clayton says every week, miss me with all that anime. Tim, I do not like anime. It's not my thing. I did start
Clone
Wars
is not anime.
I know, but it's still in the same vein. It's
how many animated kid movies do you watch?
You were dying on that Frozen 2 hill for way too long, my dude.
There's a difference between committing an hour and 45 minutes to an animated movie and how many episodes of Clone Wars am I going to have to watch to get caught up now?
100.
Where are you?
100
maybe
times 25 minutes each episode. 20. Just call it 20 minutes. It's a lot of freaking time to commit, right? So to me, it's always daunting when it's like, oh, you got to watch this. It's not anime, but it's a cartoon. And I watched the first 4 episodes last week, and it's like, dang, this is actually pretty darn good.
And it only gets better.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I started on season 3, as you guys recommended, and we'll see how long it takes.
Yeah, it takes Dave Filoni. He's proven this with both of his shows now. Took him 2 seasons with Clone Wars to get his stride. Took him 1 season to get his stride with Rebels. Part of the reason is because it takes time to build up enough assets to tell the stories that they want to tell. In a computer-generated world, you start with like limited assets working, years probably on all these assets, and it takes time to build up your all the different assets that you need to tell a story that spans the galaxy. So the first 2 seasons are very limited. They're not super special, nothing happens.
No. And they're not in chronological order either. They're kind of like
it's kind of like one shot. It's kind of like Corbin will know what this is. Maybe not very many other people do, but Cartoon Network ran some like super short shorts, like less than 5 minute long shorts that led up to the Clone Wars or the Attack of the Clones. Sorry, episode 2.
It was the artists of Samurai Jack.
Yeah, the Samurai Jack animation studio did them, and it bridged the gap between episode 1 and episode 2. It introduced like Asajj Ventress. That's where we first saw Grievous. So the first 2 seasons were more in that vein, where it was like just like one-shot stories that take place over like 1, 2, 3 episodes, and then ultimately they don't mean anything. So that's why we say to skip it, because the stories really aren't that special. They don't build on any of the long-term stories that continue to play out in the rest of the series. So
yeah. One other movie that I watched, and I talked to you guys about it. I don't know if we actually made a final decision, but The Strangers 2 was one movie that, again, I forgot how phenomenal it was. And I thought I saw it with you, Clayton, in theaters, but both of you hadn't seen it. And I don't know if we were deciding on watching it together or if you guys are going to watch in your own time. But that was another takeaway from my quarantine watches, where I was like, this is a movie that if people have slept on, man, they are just like missing a gem. Yeah,
I've got it added to my list. I think for our Patreon event, so we have a tier on Patreon where we are going to sit down and do a riff track on a movie. I think what we're going to probably do is one of the Ewok movies. That's what Clayton's itching for. I found digitals of the Ewok movies and I've seen them, but I have not seen them since I was very small.
I've never seen them. I didn't even know they existed.
I did not know that they're live action, right?
They're live action Ewok movies. There's two of them. We only
had the cartoon.
I remember watching them as a kid. I remember my grandpa one day came down with this huge box of VHSs of stuff that he's just recorded. He was retired. He's like, here, I recorded all this stuff. Have fun. 90% of it was stuff that was like rated R or like maybe even like rated X. I was like, Grandpa, I can't watch any of this. But the Ewok movies were in there. And that was like my big takeaway was I watched the Ewok movies from those VHSs. And I remember liking them as a kid. But I also remember as a kid saying, wow, this is really cheesy. And if you're a kid and you're saying, wow, this is cheesy, I can only imagine how bad it's going to be watching it as an adult 30 years later.
Yeah, I can't wait for us to watch it and make fun of it. So if that sounds like a good time to you, check out our Patreon and you'll be able to watch it on one of our tiers.
Yeah.
Indeed. What have you been up to, Tim?
I've watched a lot of stuff, a disgusting amount of things.
Disgusting amount of things.
I sat down, I was like, man, how do I talk about this huge list of things? You could probably categorize it two ways. It's like Will Smith and Nick Cage. And it sounds so disgusting, but I've had a really good time watching some of this stuff. So
the bees! No, the bees!
So when you say you've watched a ton of stuff, you really just watched a bunch of Nick Cage movies.
A ton of dog shit.
Oh goodness.
No, so probably my favorite thing I watched, I finished Homeland. So if you guys haven't watched Homeland, that is a dang good show. I got into Homeland when I was watching Dexter, because when I first started watching Dexter live on Showtime, they would go back to back Dexter and then Homeland. And I will stand on this hill that season 1 of Homeland is one of the best seasons of a show I've ever seen, period. Like if I had to sit down and really think about top 5 seasons of a show, it would probably be Dexter season 4, Breaking Bad season 4, and Homeland season 1 are probably my top 3. Like those seasons were just phenomenal. So Homeland, if you're bored, watch Homeland because it is incredible. I will say that the show has reminded me of The Walking Dead, where it started really strong and then all of a sudden out of nowhere you'd have a season that you just could throw away and you did not care about at all. And then all of a sudden
The Walking Dead's like 2/3 of the show you could throw away.
Yeah, well, The Walking Dead would go through these spurts where it's like, man, this season was awful. And I'd go into the next season, and maybe it's partially because my bar was lowered so much from the other season. And then I'd go into the next season, I'm like, wow, that was actually way better than I anticipated.
Didn't they go through showrunners like cannon fodder, Clayton, on The Walking Dead?
For a minute, yeah. And then
isn't that partly why it was like such like highs and lows?
Yeah, and when it first started, there was a lot of mixed reception. I think, at least for me, so take this with a grain of salt because this is how I perceive it. But Kirkman was heavily involved in the beginning, and one of his goals was to flesh out what if this had happened instead. Because if you don't know, Robert Kirkman created The Walking Dead as a comic book, and when he helped create the show, one of the things that he wanted to do not only was bring his comic to life, but to explore what ifs. Most notably is that Shane survives way longer in the show than in the comic, and it causes a lot of things to happen differently. So I think I don't know. So it was kind of like you got that where you're purposely kind of trying to explore different things than what the source material was. And a lot of it didn't play out good. Like Andrea, I don't know how familiar you guys are with Walking Dead, but Andrea is a super popular character in Walking Dead, and I'm not caught up really on the comic, but up until where I am, she's still alive, and I've got like 2 or 3 more volumes to read. She's still alive, and they had to kill her off on the show because everybody hated her. She was a terrible character on the show because they didn't write her correctly, and I don't think she was played by a good actress either. So
she's a badass in the comics.
Yeah, in the comics, she's fucking.
Which one's
so
Andrea?
Awesome. She is the blonde-haired one. She had in the first season, it was her and her sister, and her sister died, then she ended up dating like the governor in the show, but she doesn't do that in the comic.
Wasn't she in Rat Race?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of what else she was in. I think that's correct. But yeah, and then the governor wasn't quite done correct. I don't know. There was a lot that was done so well in the comics,
which is a shame because Morrissey is a great actor.
Yeah, David Morrissey is a great actor. But yeah, you're right. They did go through a few different showrunners. That Gimple is his name, David Gimple.
Mm-hmm.
He was there for a long time, and then because of Talking Dead, and then because of Scott Gimple, it got like super preachy, kind of like they would go on the show, the talk show afterwards with Nerdist, Chris Hardwick, yeah, and they would talk about what's the meaning of this in the show and what does this represent, and oh my goodness, and then it's like, come on, guys,
I just want to watch a zombie like kill.
This is not what this. You guys are full of yourselves. That's what it is, and that was that's the problem with that show. They got way full of themselves, and you don't have to exactly adapt everything, but comic books are super easy to adapt to a television show. So if the comic book is beloved and everybody says, it's award-winning for the writing, like maybe we just do what the comic book does.
Yeah.
But,
not a comic book fan, but the one comic book series that I binged up until a few years ago was The Walking Dead. So I think that's a really safe one, even if you're not
it's very good.
If you're not into graphic novels, like give The Walking Dead a shot because you'll burn through it. I remember I had it on my iPad and I was just like burning through it.
The show is popular, like it set records. So if you're listening to this and you are a fan of the show, whether most fans will admit that there are up and downs, but they still came back to watch it. If you're a fan of the show, the comic is 1,000 times better. I'm telling you.
Yeah, go straight to the comic for sure.
Yeah.
So, Homeland. We talk about how hard it is to end a show. I think this was season 8 of Homeland, and it's got to be up there, top 5 endings of a show. It's a perfect circle with how the show ends. It's got an ending that I think Jody and I sat on the couch and our jaw was just like dropped. And we were very torn. I was like, man, no, this is actually perfect because I don't want to give away any spoilers, but something crazy happens and the character completely atones for it in a way that you would never have expected. So Homeland, if you're looking for something new to binge, I would put Homeland very high on your list because it is darn good and well worth your time. And Claire Danes is phenomenal in that show. So give that show a watch. That was probably my favorite thing I watched. My favorite movie I watched, I think Clayton's watched as well, so I'll wait till Clayton talks about it. But Extraction, I think, is probably the best Netflix original movie. Corbin threw out Mudbound, which is also very good. It's hard to compare them because they're so different. But I think Extraction is probably my favorite Netflix original movie. I
just felt like Mudbound is such a great story that for me, it's one that I feel like is important for people to watch. So and I often forget that was a Netflix exclusive. So that's
polar opposite movie. Polar opposite.
Like,
because there's no story.
Way different energy. It's not an action movie. It's gonna might make you feel uncomfortable. It's definitely gonna tug you your heartstrings, but you walk out experiencing like a full, like complex, deep story, and it's really good. But
so we'll talk more about Extraction here soon. I watched a movie that I had very low expectations for that blew me away, and it was Den of Thieves on Netflix right now with Gerard Butler and 50 Cent. So anytime I hear a rapper going by his rap name on like the poster, it's like Gerard Butler and 50 Cent. I'm like, oh, this is going to be terrible. It was, if you can get past
like
a couple,
the Rock movies back in the day, like
most of the Rock.
movie. But aside from Corbin, help me out. The Rundown.
So good, by the way. If
if you've never seen The Rundown, that's a good movie.
So good. Christopher Walken. What's that? Something Scott. The guy from
Sean Scott.
Sean William Scott. Yeah. And Dwayne The Rock Johnson. It's so good. And Rosario Dawson is in it too.
Yeah. But besides that movie, every other movie of that era where The Rock was The Rock on the movie poster, like
terrible.
The Babysitter or The Tooth Fairy. What was it?
Tooth Fairy.
Because
Vin Diesel was in the second one.
Scorpion King.
King. Starring The Rock.
But no, so Den of Thieves, really, really good heist movie. And it's got a really, really smart ending as well. So if you're into heist movies, it felt like Heat, which I think is maybe the best heist movie of all time. So Den of Thieves, it's on Netflix right now. Definitely give that a watch.
The problem with that is that it has Gerard Butler in it. And I'm so over Gerard Butler.
Yeah,
I'm so over him.
This role is perfect for him. It's like he's playing the kind of piece of shit alcoholic cop. So it's like completely believable because I would guess that he's probably an asshole in real life as well. And most of the character development's not really around his character. So Den of Thieves, if you like a heist movie, go check out Den of Thieves. I was shocked at how good it was. I was also shocked at how much I enjoyed Bad Boys for Life. Bad Boys 2, I loved that back in high school. Haven't really watched it since. Jody and I checked out Bad Boys for Life last weekend, and dang, that is a fun movie. It is over the top. You have to be okay with some over the top action when you're watching a Bad Boys movie. You have to be okay with the most ridiculous things exploding for no apparent reason at all. But man, it is funny as hell. And the action's really good, and Will Smith is still the man. Like when he plays that character, he is like completely convincing.
That's hot. Yeah.
So convincing in that role. So man, you guys are haters.
Yeah, that's hot.
I watched another Will Smith movie, which was better than I thought, but not great. Spies in Disguise. Wasn't really my thing.
Spies in Disguise, get that out of here. Redact
it wasn't
that
really
for the audio listeners.
It wasn't really my.
Don't bring that to the table.
I'm not redacting that. Thing. Everybody's gonna hear that terrible situation.
Yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog was okay. I watched that last night. I didn't love it, but I also didn't hate it. They set it up for a second one, and I think it's going to be one of those movies where the sequel could be better than the original, just based on character development.
They also want to have Tails and Knuckles in the next one, which probably would help.
For sure. It'll make it more fun. And then I said Nick Cage movies. I finally got around to watching both National Treasure movies.
You've never seen them before?
I've never seen National Treasure 1 or 2.
Wow.
And they are ridiculously over the top. But if you're looking for a fun family movie to watch with the kids, National Treasures, it's a good time.
That's where I learned about American history.
Now that you've seen it, the I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence meme finally means something to you.
I always knew what it was
I
from.
Understand that reference.
And then you see Nick Cage and you just realize it's over the I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence. It's the like craziest thing you could say in a movie. Well, no, he topped it in the second one when he says, I'm going to kidnap the president of the United States.
Hey, in all of this time, have you watched Haunting of Hill House yet?
I am 4 episodes deep right now.
So you're not on episode 6 yet.
I'm not yet, but it is dang good.
Yeah.
It is creepy as hell. It is maybe the best shot and constructed Netflix original. Just like how the editing is and how they slide in and out from present day to memory, from character to character. It is like expertly edited. So if you're into that kind of thing, even if it's not your genre and you just really appreciate the art of filmmaking, Hill House is A+ material with how they've edited things. So good.
Just wait. Episode 6 is like, for me, it's just eye candy because it's filmed to be like in one shot. And they also have like the kids replacing the adult people, and like it's
I mean, it's
so good.
So last night I changed it up. I was in bed and Jody's not watching this. She's not into that kind of thing. So I have it on TV and it's loud. So I plugged my headphones into my phone. With my Roku app, I can control the Roku and listen to it through my phone and turn the speakers off on the TV.
Mm-hmm.
Total game changer to listen to a show like that with really good headphones on, because you can hear all of these little noises in the backgrounds and footprints and like doors creaking that are really hard to pick up even with surround sound on. So
have you been noticing any of the hidden ghosts in the corners and stuff?
I've seen hidden ghosts. Like I watched episode 3 to start yesterday, and there's times where she's in bed talking and you see like her hair kind of flutter out, and there's all these little things. I mean, yeah, I don't want to spoil it. If you haven't watched Haunting of Hill House, that is definitely worth your time. That is a great scary show. And I think the second one drops this fall. Is that right?
It's this year sometime. I can't remember if that was one of the ones that got delayed or not, but
it's definitely this year. I know I've seen that it's still on for this year, and it's
an anthology, so we're gonna see a different story. This isn't a follow-up or a prequel. It's gonna be new characters, maybe the same actors and stuff. I can't remember that, but
I think it's a new cast.
New actors
it looks like. Yeah.
So completely new story. So think American Horror Story, how each season's completely different.
And I think it's called The Haunting of Bly Manor.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Also, you talking about heist reminded me that I went on a Steven Soderbergh kick on my fever haze, where I rewatched the original Ocean's 11 films, and then I watched Steven Soderbergh did a movie. I've already forgotten the name, but it has Daniel Craig, Channing Tatum, and Adam Driver.
Logan Lucky.
Logan Lucky.
If Tim had given me an opportunity, I would have said that's one of the best heist movies out there. That movie is great.
That movie is so good, and that was a movie that like we legitimately had talked about creating a list of movies and stuff for people that were like, if you didn't have time in real life to watch it, quarantine's perfect time to watch it. This is that. I remember when the trailers came out, I kind of thought it looked a little bit dumb. I'm not a huge Daniel Craig fan. His character seemed a little over the top. And at that point in time, I didn't have a man crush on Adam Driver. So I didn't have a whole lot pulling me into the theater to see it. But I finally watched it, and it is such a great time.
Yeah, that
Logan
movie
Lucky is great.
Great.
And
I even watched Ocean's
Prime
8
right now, I think.
It is. I even watched Ocean's 8, and even that isn't terrible. That one actually has entertaining value to it.
Is that the new one?
Yeah, it's the new one with
all the ladies.
Sandra Bullock. Yeah, and all the gals. That's pretty good. But after watching all of those, all I want now is the Logans to team up with Ocean and his crew, because I think that would be hysterical to have just like white trash doing a heist with like these like gentlemanly dudes. I think that'd be hilarious.
Can you also include Nick Cage?
No, Tim.
I'm out.
He's
I don't
going to
want
be
to
playing.
watch
it. He's going to be playing Joe Exotic.
Joe Exotic.
Yes, he is.
Which we'll see, I guess. We'll see.
I haven't watched any of his recent films, but I've heard some of his recent things have actually been decent.
No.
Have you seen any?
You might have heard that from headmistress of the Cage Club.
What's the best Nick Cage movie?
I don't know. National Treasure, probably.
Have you guys seen? Have you seen Matchstick Men? That's a dang good movie.
If I have, I don't remember.
I guarantee you, there's something from the '80s that's good that we're not thinking of right now. Because he was pretty
big. Arizona, was that what it was?
But there's so much garbage. Now they're through the minutia of crap that he has. There sometimes is a gem. The movie Next is one of those movies that he did because he like had a terrible spending problem. He like gambled away everything he ever owned.
He had a huge like IRS problem, didn't he?
Something. I mean, he had the most coveted estate.
He had a spending problem for sure. He would spend all of his money. He owned like 10s or 20 homes. Like he spent literally all of his money. So the reason there is a plethora of crappy Nick Cage movies is because he, for a long time, had to take movies
everything.
Because he would just spend his money. He could not spend his money.
Yeah, he had to sell the most haunted house in New Orleans in the French Quarter that he owned. But he still has, if you go to New Orleans, he is the last person that was able to buy a plot in their above ground graveyard. And it's a giant granite pyramid that his body's going to go into amongst all these other, like, you know, graves that have been there for hundreds of years.
All right, so
what about
don't judge
Con
Nick Cage.
Air?
Doesn't hold up.
I don't know.
Con Air doesn't hold up.
Doesn't hold up.
Matchstick
I don't know that
Men.
I've seen it since like.
What about the
years ago?
It's not War Dogs, but there's a movie where he was like a gun peddler.
Lord of War.
Yeah, that one. I heard that one was good.
That one's okay. It's a slow burn.
I was burnt out in Cage to watch that.
So Matchstick
There's Ghost
Men.
Rider.
Ghost Rider. We're not going to talk about Ghost Rider.
What
The
about
Rock,
Ghost Rider 2?
The Rock is really good with Sean Connery.
I forgot that he was in that.
I forgot that he was in that.
That's a solid movie.
I don't know if I would call that a Nick Cage movie. I'd call that a Sean Connery movie that Nick Cage is in.
I'm trying to make a cage for Nick Cage here. Throw me a bone. Throw me a freaking Kick-Ass. Let's count Kick-Ass. Kick-Ass is a good movie.
Kick-Ass
you can count Kick-Ass.
Kick-Ass is good. Also, I can't help but say this because I'm a terribly vain person, but I also lost 20 pounds while on COVID, and I'm a hot piece of meat.
You say so.
Did Nick Cage get you all worked up and you felt like you had to strut a little bit?
I did,
when he says he's a hot piece of meat, it's because he's got a sweaty back right now.
He could literally wring his shirt out.
It's not a lie.
Notice that he doesn't have the camera pointed at his pants because he's not wearing them tonight.
Yeah, every time you see me touch my face, it's after I scratch my balls.
Oh God, Corbin!
Oh, damn it!
You all do.
I thought we had gotten away from that kind of talk because I'm not editing this stuff out anymore.
That's right. People are just getting the raw,
the truth,
without any foreplay. Going in dry.
Clayton, what have you been up to?
All right.
There's no better segue than Corbin's balls for Clayton to talk.
Yeah.
I know you've been like them, itching to speak.
So, like Corbin, I have been watching the Clone Wars finale. And can I just say, I think I've said this in our group chat. The final 4 episodes of the Clone Wars is some of, if not the best, Star Wars out there. And I'm not going to shy away from that. And thinking about it right now, I'm just going to make a hot take. The final 4 episodes of Clone Wars is the best Star Wars out there. The best. It is phenomenal. There is something just utterly perfect about Ahsoka in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Ahsoka was introduced in the Clone Wars movie, which started before the show. It's a terrible movie. And I remember that being like a super controversial thing. Like, Anakin has a Padawan. We've never seen this. How does this make sense? And how will this play out? Well, we've seen it play out, and it's glorious. And
he's the best.
David Filoni, for me, and me and Corbin have talked about this a little bit, but he is like Star Wars right now. Besides, I think that Jon Favreau is a better creator. The Mandalorian only has 1 season, and it is definitely a better experience, a better show than the Clone Wars as a whole. And I say that because, like we said earlier, Filoni takes forever to get a show going. And I would say that Ahsoka doesn't even really become a good character until way into Clone Wars. Like it takes a long time to develop her into a character that people really cared about. But he did. And Ahsoka for me is the best character in Star Wars. The best. And Maul is a close second. And the reason Maul is still around is because of Filoni. So, dang, man. We've talked a lot on this podcast about how I'm lukewarm on Star Wars because of The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. The Mandalorian helped keep that lukewarm flame alive and actually got me excited about Star Wars. This Clone Wars finale has reignited my love for Star Wars. And that brings me to another thing that I've been doing. I've finally started diving into the new expanded universe canon, and it's because I'm so hyped on Star Wars right now. Like I'm again in love with Star Wars, and it's because of the Clone Wars. So I've read Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith. It's kind of like Darth Vader Year One. It takes place right after Revenge of the Sith and kind of goes through the first year or so of Darth Vader when they set up the Inquisitors, him kind of establishing himself over them. And now I'm in the middle of the Darth Vader, which ran parallel to the Star Wars comic. Whenever Disney first took over everything, Marvel launched all new comic series, one of which was the title comic Star Wars, which takes place after A New Hope and follows Han, Luke, and Leia on their adventures in between A New Hope and Empire. And Darth Vader is about Darth Vader, but it's along those same lines. And it's super well done. It's after the Death Star is destroyed, the Emperor is basically like, I hate you. You lost the Death Star for me.
Which we've always talked about. That was a story that needed to be told.
Mm-hmm.
So that's cool.
That's what this is all about. It's about him trying to get back into the Emperor's good graces. The Emperor is utilizing this other program by a guy. I think it's supposed to be said Kylo, but it's spelled with a C instead of a K. So maybe it's Silo. But he's a like an android cybernetic kind of guy, and he's been developing replacement apprentices for the Emperor to take Vader's place. So it's kind of like Vader trying to establish himself on his own because the Emperor's cut him off. He doesn't have access to troops. He doesn't have access to resources. He's got to do everything on his own, and he's got to get back in the good graces of the Emperor while like trying to outmaneuver and fight all these potential new right hands. And man, it is great. I cannot wait. I think next I'm going to jump into the Star Wars comic and with Luke and just see, because I know that Luke fights Boba Fett, because in the Darth Vader comic, in order to find Luke, he's like, I need to find the person who destroyed the Death Star. So he hires a bunch of bounty hunters filled with classic bounty hunters like Bosk and Boba Fett and Dengar, all those people. And apparently in that, Boba Fett does find him, and they like kind of fight. So I'm anxious to kind of see that and stuff. But man, I'm hype on Star Wars right now. So that's the bulk, I guess, of what I've been doing. I caught up mostly with Vikings. Corbin was asking the other day if Vikings was worth watching, and I said yes. And I realized that I hadn't watched any of season 5, and the first half of season 6 is out now. So I've been watching that. Still a good show. The first 4 seasons is really good. I don't want to spoil anything, but if you know history, you kind of know how things play out. And after season 4, something happens, and it's kind of like, yeah, the story should keep going because we want to know what happens, but some of the magic is lost, I guess. So, and then of course, Animal Crossing.
Oh my gosh.
I have spent literally hours with my Switch on in front of me. And I'm not doing a damn thing except thinking. How am I going to make this island look real good?
You know, I roll my eyes, but it's only because it's impossible to find the Switch right now.
Oh,
if I
man.
had access to a Switch, I'd be right there with you.
And besides
but right
that,
now I can judge.
Yeah, I finally finished my museum layout. So I've got my museum. My island started with like an island in the middle. So like I've got a river that started up here and it goes down and then like splits and kind of creates a moat. And then it splits off into two smaller rivers that go off. So there's like an island in the middle of my island. I transformed that into where my museum is. And like I've got a T-Rex skeleton on the outside, a Triceratops skeleton on the other side. I've got shrubbery and nice terracotta ground and brick staircases and a waterfall in front and models of the animals. And so I spent a lot of time designing that. Now I'm way too deep into flower breeding, and that's taking up all of my time trying to figure out the most optimal layouts for flower beds so that I can get all the rare flowers. Because if you want the rare butterflies, boys, you gotta have hybrid flowers, okay? And let's face it, we all want those golden roses. We want them.
We all want them. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I like how you guys made fun of me for my passion for Nick Cage over the past couple of weeks. And we just had a conversation about flower beds.
Dude, if you're playing Animal Crossing, you'd understand.
I'm glad I didn't play it, I think, because I could see it being that game that just like sucks you in. And like you said, you look up and it's like 11 o'clock and you're like, dang, I've been on my Switch for like 2.5 hours and I really didn't even do all that much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's where I'm at right now.
You
it's
have
like
more important things to be doing. You still haven't even watched Boy Meets World yet. So you have catching up to do.
The beautiful thing about the Switch, though, is that you can play Animal Crossing while something else is on the screen.
If something else is on the screen and I'm playing Animal Crossing, it means that the other thing on the screen is probably not worth my time. That's what it means.
Probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, you hit the
nail on the head. If I ever try anime, then I'll just play Switch while it's on.
Dude, fuck you. What the heck? No, you need undivided attention. Undivided attention. Also, Clay, when you're talking about the Vader comic and him getting back in the graces of the Emperor, that's like a Vader Sekiro game waiting to be made. Just Vader fighting new apprentices, and that's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be amazing. That'd be so cool.
It would.
We need more Vader content, whether it's a show, whether it's a movie. We need Vader.
Yeah. There's definitely more to tell in between, because that year one comic, Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, it came out after the one I'm reading now, but it takes place chronologically before. It deals with a lot of like, it goes through him building his fortress on Mustafar, goes through him asking for Mustafar, goes through him, setting up the Inquisitors and all that stuff, which we still need to know exactly what happened to all the Inquisitors. We know how some of them kind of get taken care of because of rebels in Fallen Jedi Order, but we don't know what happened to all of them. So, and there's none around by the time A New Hope hits, as far as we know. So,
but also we know from Order 66 they missed a plethora of Jedi, a ton, because they keep popping out of the woodworks every time they want to tell a new story.
Yeah, they definitely did miss a lot.
A lot.
Yeah, but they kind of dive into more of the Force kind of stuff as far as the dark side and all that. It's pretty cool. Like they show Vader's always meditating, and they kind of show him get into that in that comic, and they show what the world looks like to him as he traverses the Force astral plane, like the dark side astral plane.
That's fascinating. So, like it makes me excited to like want to read the comic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one thing you don't realize until you read a comic like this is that even though he's fallen completely, like he is all about the Force. Like he is all about the Force. Like, the Force is this, the Force is that. You don't believe in the Force. Like, we get a little bit of that in A New Hope, how he's like, you don't believe in the Force, so I'm gonna choke you. But like, these comics really dive deep into like, he is always the Force, the Force, the Force. Like, he's
the man
even though he's on the dark side, like, he's still like a true believer in the Force.
Only my newfound powers can do that, Padme. Silence. Nothing like an awful episode 3 quote to just end the podcast.
Yeah.
You started the podcast terribly, and now you're ending it
terribly.
You could have done the sand quote.
I hate sand. Gets everywhere.
Of course, gets everywhere.
God. Oh man, what a terrible movie. People like that movie. People think it's good. What a terrible.
People think we need more Lucas.
Yeah.
People understand.
Another thing about this Star Wars fandom, because I've been doing all this Star Wars stuff lately, I've got these stupid recommendations on my YouTube, and one of these dudes is like, every fucking day, George Lucas restarts Anakin Skywalker. Kathleen Kennedy gets destroyed, ruins Star Wars. Dave Filoni restarts Obi-Wan. And it's just like, you click on his video, and he's just like spewing fucking nonsense. Like, I never comment on videos. I commented on this dude's video and I said, where are you getting your information from, guy? Like, these aren't even like in Reddit rumor threads. Like, where are you just pulling this shit out of your ass? Like,
yes.
What? And then there's working. But then there's people like in these Facebook things that I was talking about earlier, Facebook groups, that are talking about this same shit. So it's like they're watching this dumbass. Ugh. So frustrating.
We've talked about this before, and it's hard to talk about it and not sound pretentious, but I'm gonna own it. But nothing irks me more than being plugged in to like nerd news and rumors, and then like whether it be at work or like a friend of a friend, and like they like bring up this asinine rumor that like isn't legit, and you're like, no, that's not that's just not even real. Like, you think you're bringing me you think you're bringing me news? I am the news. and then on the flip side, they'll bring me something that like we've known for like months. Like, did you know this? Like, yeah. You should change your thread. You should probably get off of "we got this covered" and like actually be paying attention to real shit.
Like the Nerdosphere and our news.
Like the Nerdosphere. But like that kind of stuff always annoys me. Is like when like a fanboy like is talking about a rumor as if it's fact. It's like when people talk about fan fiction as if it's real. I'm like, it's not real. It's not real. And you have no source to back up what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's just hearsay.
It's actually been pretty cool. Like, so just to like pump up Corbin a little bit, we've seen some like huge news providers come out with stories that Corbin has written an article about or talked about on the podcast, like weeks before you see it break everywhere else. So like he's really is in tune with what's going on out there. What was the one that I sent you the other day that all the major places, it was Star Wars director.
Oh, Taika Waititi.
Yeah. That was breaking news last week everywhere. It was like trending topic, hundreds of thousands of tweets. Every big news article had something out on there. It's like, man, we talked about this on the podcast like a month ago.
Yeah, we knew that already. Well, that's because that just kind of goes to show, I mean, we know weeks in advance that something's going to happen because it's basically confirmed. And then finally, like Disney or whatever comes out, or they themselves come out and say, I'm doing this. And then everybody's like, oh, look, he's doing it. It's like, well, I mean, yeah, we already knew.
So
thanks for confirming it, I guess, but we already knew.
No.
So that's been my life with Star Wars, dealing with these. I'm still in the groups. I guess I just like to watch the train wreck. I don't know. It's just.
I have an idea. It's for an ongoing bit. Clayton is Joe Exotic, and this YouTube guy you're talking to is the new Carol Baskins. Every week, I want you just to go on a rant. I don't know this guy's name. It's a fucking bitch.
I'll do it. He puts out a new video every day. George Lucas hired by Disney restarts Anakin Skywalker. Retcons and fixes. Get out of here. You don't know what you're talking. No.
Utter nonsense.
A quick Google search shows that George Lucas hasn't been written about in conjunction with Lucasfilm since he sold it back in 2000 whatever.
Maybe it's George Lucas and he's got a pen name.
Yeah, it is George Lucas.
Dave Filoni is Lucas.
Oh god.
He's the surrogate.
All right. So is that do it?
I'm tired of talking to you guys. I think we can take it home.
All right.
We can take it home. I think I'm at like 5% battery anyways.
Sounds good. Well, that does it for this week's Nerdosphere, folks. Remember to subscribe to the newly revamped YouTube. You can find us here. You're not only going to see the podcast, but you're going to see clips of the podcast, so that way you can get each little segment that's worth listening to standalone on its own. You're going to get videos. Tim put up a cool video where he's talking about The Last of Us and the leaks and how it sucks. So be on the lookout for that kind of stuff on our YouTube channel. Give us a follow over on Twitter at NerdosphereCast. Give us a like on Facebook at facebook.com/the Nerdosphere to stay up to date on us and anything new or noteworthy in the interwebs. If you like what we do and want to support us, be sure to leave us a review on iTunes and give us a subscribe to anywhere that you listen. If you really like what we do, check us out at patreon.com/the Nerdosphere, where you can support us and become a part of the show. We hope you all have a great week, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Toodaloo.